Welcome one and all to the Stock Up Podcast, your one-stop shop for stocking up on the information you need to qualify for the Pro Tour. My name's Alex. I'm joined today by my co-host, as always, one Jacob Negro. Jacob, how are you, my friend?
Good. How are you doing, Alex?
I'm good. You know, we had to skip last week because I was actually in New Mexico for a wedding. I got to see you, too. It was nice.
Yeah. It's nice to see you.
Yeah. So I had a lot going on. I didn't get to play much Magic. I have played some of the Power Cube since we've been back.
Yeah, I played a ton of Power Cube.
Oh, you too?
Yeah.
Dude, it's a lot of fun. It's cool having it on.
I went from
I'm a cube
silver to
years.
Mythic in 2 days when it came out.
Oh,
and
nice.
now I'm almost Mythic again after the ladder reset.
Holy moly. Okay, so we're going to have a lot to talk about with the cube today. What'd you do over the weekend? There was a historic event. Did you end up playing in that?
Yeah, so I ended up playing Eldrazi. So I guess also, as we talked about 2 weeks ago on Historic, notably the Tuesday before this qualifier, they changed, not only did they add cards, which was a known thing, but they'd made some surprise buffs and maybe nerfs, or definitely nerfs, maybe buffs. And one of them was 2 Swiftspear teachings. Which now gives you a boon that says you have to choose either prowess or haste.
Right.
Which, in my opinion, kind of just kills the Rona deck that we talked about. Because
yeah, it was a huge part of that deck.
You know, now in order to win with that deck, you have to be able to dig into 2 Swiftspear's teaching and cast both of them on prowess and haste, and then do something else. And you know, when I played that deck, a lot of my games I won were just casting an early. You know, you could literally do this on turn 2, but even if it's not turn 2, you just cast the teachings. Eventually, the first creature you end up casting is Rona. It has prowess and haste, and you combo off and you kill them with it. And you don't even need to dig into more things, which...
Yeah, and I think it's also notable that it kills your turn 2 kill, which I imagine the percent on that was relatively low because you had to have 4 different cards, but that was definitely a unique power level that deck had. Now it's gone.
So yeah, then I just started looking at Eldrazi again. And I talked to some other people about it, and it's kind of interesting because I was in a Discord of people that seemingly thought that the Eldrazi mirrors were kind of miserable and snowbally.
Okay.
But, and I think you have my list from day one, but I the way I got to this list was basically starting backwards and thinking, what do I want my Eldrazi deck to look like in the mirror? And I thought, Consign to Memory is just going to be one of the best things you can have access to, so I definitely want to be a blue variant. And it seemed like Icetail Explorer was kind of the next level to that as well, where Icetail is just a card that does not get consigned and kind of functions to bring you back into the game.
Okay.
And, you know, we can talk about some other choices here, but I guess to kind of skip to the end, I played a plan with this list and qualified. I think I played 2 or 3 total play-ins, but with different lists. And when I kind of came across this list, because I think I played some main deck Kozilek's Returns, and I just didn't think that was really lining up well. I think at large and Historic, the format was just not friendly to main decking removal, is the simplest way to put it. You're just going to play against a deck that the removal is so dead against so often. It's such a diverse format.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wanted to make sure every element of my deck was pretty proactive and just powerful in every matchup. So you can even see comically Stock Up filling the gaps of things. But, you know, that's also a payoff. You know, it's a big mana card in the sense that, when you ramp, a way to get a 2-for-1 is really nice. It doesn't get consigned. Switching from modern version of this deck to the Historic version, the lack of Ancient Stirrings, it was pretty noticeable that I never had Kozilek's Command in my hand as much as I was used to, and there's just not a better card you can play besides Stock Up to fix that problem, I think. So the one crop rotation kind of lets you instant speed the Bog. You can also just crop rotation a green land into an Eldrazi Temple, and you know that's not even really 2-for-1ing yourself. You know, it's Eldrazi Temple is already a 2-for-1, so it's 2-for-2ing yourself in a sense. You know,
yeah, that's a good point.
If yeah.
So the other part of the blue I'm noticing here is the sideboard, but also the Null Drifters.
Yeah,
How
so
was
another
that
thing,
card?
yeah, I mean, this is just a thing I've learned in Modern, but to meet the requirements for Ugin's Labyrinth, you have to play a bunch of sevens. I usually aim to have 10 at a minimum,
Hmm.
sometimes more. And like when you just play a bunch of cards that actually cost 7 or more, you just have like an issue of functioning too often, I think. And Null Drifter, it just never gets better than Null Drifter as far as like a card that you can play that functions, it does something on lower ends in the game. I think Divination in a ramp deck is kind of serviceable. Um,
Yeah, it makes sense. I know you can play it for 2 mana a lot of the time.
Yeah, and especially when you add in that like people are trying to destroy your lands or hold up counter spells on your important turns, so like squeezing in anything out of your cards earlier in the game is a big deal. Um,
Yeah,
this
that
deck was
makes sense.
definitely the enemy of the format. It seemed like
Hmm.
going in this event. Um, and I guess to add, because I kind of got sidetracked, but the mirror, I ended up just winning every mirror I played with this deck. Actually, so it
Okay.
seemed like it was kind of skill intensive. The games, maybe not skill intensive, but more deck like building related.
Yeah, you
Um,
look pretty well set up. One of the 7 mana cards you don't have that a lot of people play, that I
Devourer.
was playing around, yeah, the Devourer, and that card does not seem particularly good in the mirror. I mean, I guess it could hit your Explorers, but
Yeah, and sprawls maybe. So that's another thing that we'll get into more. But the more I played Eldrazi mirrors, the lower I was getting on Utopia Sprawl, and
hmm.
I was trying to fix my deck. So basically, a lot of people. I had a sideboard Ghost Quarter. It's hidden by the back button. Um, that came in the mirrors.
Yeah,
Um,
I was gonna ask you about that. These Explorers, I thought mostly the joke was with that was that you were ghost courting people, and you don't even have a ghost quarter in your main deck. So was this you're just trying to abuse your one Waterlog Grove, or what's going on there?
just like using the vistas and milling yourself, and then you end up, or that card kind of fuels itself a little bit too, right? Like you just hit your land drops and you mill other lands sometimes.
Hmm.
Obviously, ideally you have a vista, but it's really good at fueling Emrakul. Um, if
Gotcha.
you have the
Okay.
vista, it's just like a 2-for-1 anyways. Things can't go too wrong if you play that card and immediately play a vista from your graveyard, even if they have a dismember or they untap and play devour. And I think what's nice is, it's just another bridge card. And I think having the extra bridge cards made it so when I played these mirrors, I would start out maybe a little behind on mana, but I just kind of reliably could get back into a game despite maybe my lands getting destroyed by Mycospawn or Ghost Quarter or things like that. And then I could really pick my battles with Consign because really, I think there comes a point in the game where the only card that's really going to matter is Emrakul.
Right.
Um, and you could counter big Kozilek's commands too because those are probably going to be too valuable. But you probably don't have to care about any of the other Eldrazi, including Mycospawn, if you're holding Consign.
Okay. You just hold it
Um,
to counter the trigger on the Emrakul and the Emrakul, I suppose. Yeah.
and if I knew I was going to play as many mirrors, I would have main decked the Ghost Quarter. It was just kind of bad. So yeah, I went. So in my play-in that I qualified with, I played against two kind of Eldrazi ramp decks and one Eldrazi aggro deck, and because you have to four of those, I obviously beat all of them. And then on day one of the qualifier, I lost round one to a mono red prowess deck. That might be kind of
That
expected
makes
with the way I built
sense.
my deck.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
then I beat three of the normal Eldrazi decks that look kind of like mine. I beat an Eldrazi aggro deck, and then I beat like two of the Jund Goyf decks and a Lotus Breach deck. Um,
Wow. Okay.
so I went 7-1. So I was pretty
Hmm.
excited, and I started building my deck for day two because you can actually change your deck between day one and day two. You could play a completely different deck if you wanted, but because I was already so focused on this deck, I figured it would be kind of ridiculous to completely switch archetypes. But I did want to narrow in more what I was trying to beat.
Right. Especially
So
since you hadn't played a ton of this format before.
yeah.
That makes sense. It is interesting
Um,
that arena events let you do that.
so what I thought is, I didn't need this like Kozilek's Return Mountain package. It came up for me against the small Eldrazi deck. It seemed like a reasonable sideboard plan against some of these go wide decks. There are a few of them, Boros Energy and stuff like that. You have the Prismatic Vistas and the Utopia Sprawls and Sowing Mycospawn, I guess. So you actually have quite a lot of ways to get the red mana. Plus, you're just trying to mill Kozilek's Return for the most part, anyways, with Ice Till or Rumble. But there were some things, and I was trying to map out the mirror, and definitely going to take out like the two Ugins in the mirror. Um, I kind of don't think the crop rotation is that important post board in many matchups. Just the games are a little bit more about, I guess I would call them like attrition or normal magic. Like as you both disrupt each other a lot, I think that a card like crop rotation kind of going down a card is not actually worth doing.
Was it pretty common for everyone to have blue and consign?
So the small ball Eldrazi decks, to be clear, no, they're like playing 12-ish, I think, like Cavern of Souls like lands. I mean, the other 8 are not uncounterable, but they're just using them to fix their mana for Eldrazi. So they have like no utility lands or no second colors. The big decks, yeah, I think I played against maybe a couple that were red only for the Kozilek's returns, which are obviously not very good in the mirror, and you're giving up a lot. And they'll sometimes use Stone Rain in their sideboard in this format. But, when I'm on the Ice Till side of things, Stone Rain's really embarrassing.
Yeah, for sure.
It's... and I would say people definitely just, like, do try to attack your lands a lot. And so what I would do is I would, like, board in this Ghost Quarter. I'd oftentimes, like, board out an Ugin's Lab, because I'm boarding out a couple 7s. I'd board out the crop rotation, and I'd even board out some sprawls. And then I kind of set myself up for day 2 to maybe board out all my sprawls.
So you had extra sideboard cards for the mirror?
Yeah, so the consigns would obviously come in. And the other cards I was planning on bringing in were a spot removal spell that someone in my Discord was playing that I thought was kind of interesting, called Utter Insignificance from Modern Horizons 3.
Okay, what's that card? I can't
So
remember.
it's an aura with flash for 1 and a blue. And it says enchanted creature loses all abilities is in a 1/1. And you can pay 2 and a colorless to exile enchanted creature, which means the aura will then go to your graveyard.
Okay.
And it kind of added up to me because, there's this Goyf deck that has some giant monsters that like Dismember won't kill. And this aura is a permanent, so you can find it off Rumble.
Right.
And notably, if I'm boarding out all my sprawls, I'm like missing out on enchantments for my Emrakul. But this is like an enchantment that goes, and I cast it, and it goes to my graveyard again, and it just gives me like some more checks for maybe their Ice Tills, because I kind of just expected more people would be on Consign plus Ice Till in day 2 of this event, because it seemed like the best thing to be doing in the mirrors. And then also, I just think, once again, you get to these board states where really only Emrakul matters, and that card does check Emrakul if you're willing to pass with 2 mana up a lot.
Sure.
And there's really no counterplay. Like, they just play the Emrakul, you make it into a 1/1, and then, sure, they take your turn, but they just have a 1/1 in play, so they probably can't really devastate you.
Right, because Emrakul has protection from instants, but it doesn't have protection from flash enchantments. Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I thought that'd be nice, and the reason I'm saying all of this, I guess, kind of in a weird hypothetical way, is because I woke up. So 6 to 8 a.m. was the sign-up window on Sunday for day 2.
Did you miss it?
And it was daylight savings, and I woke up at 7:20 my time, which is 6:20 a.m. the time, only 20 minutes after the sign-up window opens, and I woke up to Discord notifications learning that someone who set this up at Wizards set daylight savings the wrong direction, which meant that the sign-up window was actually from 4 to 6 a.m. So I missed it alongside a decent number of other players.
Oh no, man.
Yeah.
You told me about this.
Yeah.
And I'm just, reacting again, but like that is so crazy.
Yeah.
Did they ever I could just imagine like it's a Sunday morning and everybody in the Wizards department or whatever, they're not even at the
nobody's there to
computer.
respond to anything. Yeah.
Yeah, when it's going.
So it was not fixed.
So many people must have missed out.
Yeah. In the Discord I was in, only 4 people that were in day 2, and me and one other guy. The other guy I was working on with Eldrazi specifically, both missed it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess to add the other kind of breakout deck that people were noticing a lot of, because there was kind of, Historic's so weird because it's completely unknown. So we have like a scouting channel where like we're saying every deck we're playing against, just to kind of like get a sense of maybe what is happening in the tournament.
Yeah.
Lotus Field Breach was like really dominating, which makes sense because it's a fast combo deck that main decks can sign.
Okay.
So notably, I had mentioned I got rid of these Kozilek returns in my sideboard, and part of that is because I was going to sideboard 4 Damping Spheres in day 2 and a Flusterstorm. Um,
Oh, wow. Okay, that makes sense. If that's,
the
I mean,
Fluster,
it's got
one
to be one of your
Flusterstorm
hard
I also
matchups.
thought was kind of appropriate in the mirror against decks that looked like mine because it counters Kozilek's command pretty much always, which is really nice, especially in closed deck lists. They're just never going to play around it. Um, and then if they like replicate consign on your thing and are using like exactly enough mana to do so, which is also pretty common, you can Flusterstorm every copy of consign and resolve your whole spell.
Oh, wow. Okay. Just for a single blue. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So
Oh, that's
those are
brutal.
kind of the notable changes. I was kind of dedicating my sideboard almost entirely to like the Mirror, Lotus Breach, and the Jungoyf deck at that point.
Okay.
Was really trying to maximize on those. That was my plan. But yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get to play day 2. I have gotten the consolation of an invite to day 2 of next month's Arena qualifier, which is going to be Avatar sealed, but certainly sucks to have felt pretty well prepared at that stage in the tournament.
It also doesn't really matter for you because if you want to qualify for one of these events, you do it pretty easily.
Well, yeah, at least it's day 2.
Well, it gets you into day 2.
Yeah. I get to skip day 1 of the next one.
That's pretty nice, at least.
So I mean,
to be fair, there's only so much they can do if they, assuming they've messed up and they miss it and they don't get to it in time, they can't just like shove you into the tournament.
Yeah, I get that mistakes
really
happen. It's a kind of silly mistake. It's one that I feel like if they had 2 pairs of eyes looking on, and that it would never have happened, which gives me the impression it was only one person's job to not mess that up, and it got messed up.
Just set the time the wrong direction, man.
Yeah. But then, I guess also just, I feel a little disappointed on a lack of customer service in that, like, I got the response, on Tuesday. On Monday morning, I get, like, the automated response saying, like, we're making sure your ticket's going to the right place. And on Tuesday, it was just kind of like a cold, heartless email that's like, you'll get an invite to day 2 of next month's or whatever. And
odd.
And like no gems or wild cards. I'd mentioned in my ticket, it's like I built 3 different historic decks at least, used a lot of my wild cards specifically for this format, and it's like, how hard is it to just give me like $50 worth of gems? That would go a long way.
Yeah, that's rough. I mean, it probably happened to so many people that they wrote one email for everyone.
Yeah.
But also that's odd that it was kind of a cold email if you're just going to send it out to everyone anyways. I don't know. I mean, maybe
I get that day 2, day 2 of a thing is, I mean, it's where I already was, but like that is going to save me. I don't have to play play-ins. I don't have to, but I'm still going to like practice Avatar sealed, which is the next format. I guess I'm happy that it's Avatar sealed and not like Alchemy or something.
Right. Yeah, and I think there's no way for them to know that, like, one of the reasons I assume it stings so much is because it's kind of this oddball format that not a lot of people play, and it seemed like you had a really good deck. So from our perspective as longtime tournament players, that's a rare opportunity.
Yeah, it felt good to feel like I was playing the most popular deck that had a lot of target on it, and felt like I was really sculpting the right plans to get around that. And I really think that just the small things like Ice Till and Stock Up are cards that work on kind of, I guess, a low resource game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. In my play-in, I played against the one deck I played against that wasn't Eldrazi in round 1 was like a red-black deck with main deck Crumble to Dust, which is hilarious because that card's like horrible against this deck. Like, it's just
isn't that the one that it extracts
it's like surgicals
the land?
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
that's that's not even that good, huh?
Yeah, like who cares if I don't? Oftentimes, by the time they cast it, I would already have like 2 Eldrazi temples in play, and it doesn't get both.
Oh, right.
So
right. And then you have all these other lands. Yeah, that's kind of where the strength of the Explorer seems really appealing. It's almost just like it's a really good insulation against the ways most people will try to fight your deck.
Yeah, it can't be consigned, and it just stops land destruction. Yeah, exactly. It's
okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I think also, yeah, it's just a matter of like people were really focused on disrupting me this tournament, which I think is just like worse than being really focused. The deck I lost to is the deck that didn't really disrupt me at all and was just all pressure. And that seems much scarier.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's interesting. Historic is like, in a lot of ways, it's similar to a modern format, but obviously there's so many pieces missing to actually be that format. So when the newest addition from this deck, right, is Eldrazi Temple. That's kind of what's pushed it over the edge.
Yeah, that was an Edge of Eternities. Yeah, and this deck in particular though is like the only thing it's missing that Modern has is like Ancient Stirrings and Fetch lands. But the Fetch for Surveil thing, even though I think it's pretty significant in this deck specifically, that's a thing that all decks are missing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a level playing field. And Ancient Stirrings isn't even in every version of this deck.
Gotcha.
So this deck is one of the ones that's closest to a Modern deck. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Do you predict any evolution in this format? Like,
I just think they should like ban Eldrazi Temple or something.
Oh, I think it's that bad, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the decks there are a lot of
less...
decks that can win really fast, but it's in somewhat, I guess, narrow and attackable ways, and also not that consistent all the time.
Mm-hmm. Like the Lotus deck and it's just like creature combo, right?
Yeah, we touched on the Lotus deck, I remember, and my friends were playing like the crop rotation, 8 Stifle Lotus Field deck, and one of them made day 2 7-0, and then went 2-2 on day 2. But it's just like they're just mulling the 4. Like your hand just has to have either crop rotation or Lotus Field, and then usually has to have a Stifle. So they have like 2 8-ofs, and they just like need a hand that has both of them in order for their deck to really function.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if that deck's really broken and that's all you need, that you'll get a long way just mulliganing till that happens, and that'll probably work out. But obviously some matchups you're just gonna mulligan into Oblivion and never hit it.
If I was revisiting this format, I'd be kind of interested in looking at the I did this a little bit, but I didn't focus on this format too much. I'd be interested in looking at the cards that are not legal in Modern.
Yeah,
that are really strong. I feel like if anyone's missing anything, it's probably around a card like that.
Yeah, the John Goif deck, Edgar and Nassif have a podcast together, and that's the deck they were advocating for.
Okay.
And that's full of cards not legal in Modern.
Yeah, explain that deck to me. I haven't even seen it.
So it's like a Jund mid-rangey deck with a bunch of discard spells, Inquisition and Thoughtseize.
Mm-hmm. It
has Malevolent Rumble. And then it has these 2 Goifs. It could play more, and comically, like I think Tarmogoyf is legal in this format, but they're not even playing it.
Funny.
So there's Borrogoyf, which is 2 and a black, which these cards both have the normal Tarmogoyf text, but with more upside. So their power and toughness equal number of card types in graveyards, or the toughness is 1 more.
Mm-hmm.
Borrogoyf is a 2 and a black, Death Touch lifelink, and when it does damage to a player, you may mill that many cards and then return a creature from among them to your hand.
Okay.
But adding Death Touch and Lifelink to Tarmogoyf is like a huge
giant
deal,
creature.
Obviously.
Yeah,
huge stabilizer. But the more powerful one, which we can get into for Cube later too, is Pyrogoyf, which is 3 and a red, which is Tarmogoyf. That says whenever any Lurgoyf enters under your control, including itself, it does damage equal to its power to any target.
Yep.
Like this burn spell, Flame Tongue Kavu, it's just giant. It works insanely well in multiples. If you play one into another, then the second one just ends up being like 3 times its power in burn.
Yeah, I have to imagine in Constructed, especially, the fact that it can hit players is kind of insane.
Yeah. Then the
what
other,
do they
I
do
guess,
to set up their graveyard?
They have Rumble and just, it's all graveyards too. So just like in Modern, the discard spells, that's a sorcery. You might put a card type in their graveyard. It's not a sorcery. Also, Causeless Command, one of the most played cards in the format, which is amazing for card types in graveyards.
Kindred, yep. Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, another non-Modern legal card they play is called Jarsel, which I'm not sure would be good enough for Modern, but maybe. It's 1 red and a green for a 3/3 legendary creature. And it's one of those intensity cards, so it has the phrase starting intensity 1, which means, like, if it references its intensity, which it will later in the card, it starts at 1. And it says at the beginning of combat on your turn, I think you target an instant or sorcery in your graveyard with mana value equal to your intensity. You can cast it without paying its mana cost, and then you increase the intensity by 1. It's not or less, notably. But basically, it's like a 3 mana 3/3 that at the beginning of combat casts a Thoughtseize or Fatal Push right off the bat. And then next turn, if you have a Rumble or they play a few other 2-drops, like maybe Abrupt Decay, you can hit that. And they don't really even play 3-drops. I mean, I guess they sideboard Stone Range and Cleansing Wildfire, so I guess against Eldrazi, a matchup where that creature might be more likely to live too. It can go from like 2 to 3 and try to keep destroying lands.
So I double checked just for what it's worth. It's any spell in the graveyard that you can cast, not just instant or sorceries.
Wow. Okay, so you can
Yeah.
go and get Tarmogoyfs. Okay, I did not realize that.
Yeah, that was in the Alchemy in 2023, and it's been every time I play Alchemy, which is not very often, but every once in a while, I usually play against that card. It's really good.
It's very much a Jund card because it's so good with discard spells.
Thoughtseize, yeah.
You're clearing the path for itself, and then you get another thing immediately. So even if they kill it on their turn or something,
it starts with a 1-drop.
You got it 2-for-1. Yeah.
But I mean, in theory, you could eventually, especially if Rumble your deck, you could start getting your Goyfs out of the graveyard with it.
Yeah, I did
too.
not. I'll be honest, I totally missed. I thought it was only instants and sorceries.
Yeah, I mean, it reads like a card that would be that way.
Yeah, weird
crazy
card. Yeah.
Okay, so they like that deck. Did you play against that deck at the event? You said you did once or twice.
Yeah, I did. So I played against a red-black Goyf deck, and then I played against the Jund Goyf deck that looked very similar to probably someone that followed their podcast.
I'd expect Eldrazi to be on the better side of that matchup.
Yeah, they thought otherwise, but it's, their sideboard had 4 Cleansing Wildfire and a couple Stone Rains. It's just like exactly the type of thing where me with Stock Up and Icetail Explorer, I think might just be pulling ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if that's their way to fight it.
Not having the Devourer of Destinies maybe hurt, but Ugin is also kind of just lights out against them if you ever play it. So that's like part of why I still have the Ugins, even though in the mirrors they're not very useful. They're surprisingly like not completely useless in mirrors though. Like you get their Utopia Sprawl and you have this Planeswalker that's kind of hard for them to actually do anything about that still gains 3 life and draws a card every turn.
Yeah.
I'm boarding them out, of course, but I think to say that they're like totally useless in the mirror is not true.
Totally,
whereas, like, Devourer of Destiny is much more
card.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, Devourer of Destiny's like just a 5/5.
Yeah, it's a 6/6, but like you can totally just take all damage from it in the mirror while you play out your turns too. Like,
yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, Historic's pretty interesting. It might be fun if we revisited it more, like if it was more important. I guess it comes up for the Arena Championships a decent amount.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to highlight Timeless next month, which is really weird.
Well, that's wild. Have you played that format?
Not really.
Yeah, me neither. I played a little bit. From what I understand, Show and Tell is kind of the dominant archetype.
That's what Arne Huschenbeth has been making some YouTube content because so what I mean by highlighting Timeless is that's the format of the like Arena Finals thing. The thing that all these qualifiers qualify for. I think not the one I played. That's probably over with.
Sure.
But the next one is in December, and it's Avatar Draft and Timeless.
Okay, well, it'll be fun to watch at least. It's a little
30-something players. I don't know if they've got enough. I know they were trying to increase the field, so maybe it's more like 64. But yeah, they're going to be playing Timeless.
Yeah, my experience with that format was that one of the reasons the Show and Tell is so good is they can play. What's that? Summer's Veil? Autumn's Veil? What's the card?
Yeah, Veil of Summer. Yeah,
that's the Veil of Summer. Yeah.
Yep.
So it just totally.
That was the first video I think you made about that format was featuring that deck. But yeah, there's a lot of cool things. Or powerful
Mana
things.
Drain. Yeah.
Currently, Strip Mine is not banned or restricted either, which is very weird.
Oh, so I haven't played with it since then. I bet people play with Icetail Explorer there too.
Yeah, maybe. That sounds a little slow, but certainly like
maybe
an
with Strip
Mine has got to be pretty powerful.
Yeah, you could ramp it out maybe. So turning to real life events, we've got RC Las Vegas coming up, and you're going to that, right?
Yeah, I got my flight.
Okay.
Coordinating hotel currently, but it should be set.
Yeah, that's Modern, so I figured we could shift our conversation to Modern a bit. Do you have a deck you like for that tournament, or do you know what you're going to play?
Yeah, not much has changed since discussion of tier list. I guess there's one major change from our tier list episodes, but yeah, I'm pretty interested in playing Amulet. It's a deck I've played a handful of times, and I understand from a level of like knowing my options in game. I think I'm very familiar with. I think I need more practice actually, navigating versus certain interaction. And yeah, we have this list here, which is from Evan, who top-aided in MXP in Tacoma over the weekends. That's a those are Laughing Dragon runs these events usually on the East Coast, or sorry, West Coast. And this list is pretty similar to what I would register, so that's why I wanted to bring it up. The spells are exactly what I've been playing with. The 29 main deck spells. If I play Amulet, I really doubt I'm going to change any of those in the main deck, to be honest. I kind of like all these 2/2/2 splits.
Okay. So the noticeable differences I see that I'm not used to is looks like there's less Scape Shift and there's Green Sun Zenith in the main deck.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
Yeah, Zenith has become pretty normal. I think there's been a big debate for a long time about either Rumble or Explore, which I had touched on before too. Explore sounds very synergistic with the deck. I mean, it is. But yeah, I've just kind of felt like, Rumble is just a better card.
It's really good.
This list has 50 permanents, so you have a miss, and obviously missing on Summoner's Pack, Scape Shift, and Green Sun Zenith, those are some of your notable payoffs. That's definitely true. I think that's part of why there's like -1 Scape Shift, +1 Aftermath Analyst, because that's like a slight payoff you could hit with Rumble.
Yeah.
But also, so Scape Shift, the goal with it is to control like 4 lands at a minimum and have an untapper effect in play. Sometimes you can have less than that, because if you have like Titans or Zeniths in your hands, you can like Scape Shift off 3 mana, or 3 lands but 4 mana, because if you have a bounce land or something. And that works still if you have redundant things. And Explore would help you get actual lands on the battlefield, which is synergistic with Scape Shift. But Rumble, it makes it significantly more likely that you find Spelunking or Amulet. That's like its #1 job. So in that sense, I'm not actually sure that Explore is better with Scape Shift than Rumble is.
Yeah.
Especially when you start talking about post-board games, or even in Game 1, where people are destroying your Amulets or Spelunkings.
The thing I've noticed about Rumble, just honestly from playing Cube, is it's just like kind of an incredible card even in that format, for really high-powered decks.
It's a really strong card, and Explorer I just cannot say the same about. So even if on paper Explorer is like more synergistic with this deck, I really think that like the example of post-board games is kind of exactly where I like Rumble, where it's just like your opponents are going to do things to stop you from winning, and not everything's going to be perfect. So this card that is just like way stronger in the abstract is what ends up being better.
Yeah, it's funny, like this deck used to play Ancient Stirrings, and I remember at a time that was really important for the deck. And this provides that same sort of filtering. But obviously, you've got the Aftermath Analyst plan now, and the ramp
milling yourself
kind of makes up for costing one more.
Yeah, Shifting Woodland's a card I'm going between 1 and 2 of, too. Because even though for, any weird Titan chaining Scape Shift loops, the second Woodland isn't like something you need. It's a land that sometimes just comes up and is relevant without some actual loop, or it enables the loop because you found the pieces to begin with, just kind of naturally without Escape Shift. Yeah. And the only reason really that it's a card that can deserve a second slot is because it's a green source. And, a lot of the slots in this deck are just colorless lands that can be really awkward. So any land that can tap to make green, I think, is like something kind of worthy of consideration when you're changing around the lands in this deck.
For people who haven't played with this deck, you want to go over like the very basic loop and skill.
So I'll start with the Scape Shift and how you get there, I guess, even though it's a few steps. So let's say you just have 4 lands and a Spelunking play, and you cast Scape Shift, and none of the cards in your hand are relevant. You'll sack the 4 lands. You'll get 2 Lotus Fields, Teleria West, and Simic Growth Chamber. That's going to be worth 9 mana, and you can bounce the Teleria West and then sack all of your lands. You'll transmute Teleria West for Summoner's Pact. You'll cast Summoner's Pact for Aftermath Analyst, and with your 6 mana, you'll play and activate Aftermath Analyst, which will return. So let's say the Aftermath Analyst mills like 3 Arboreal Grazers, just something irrelevant. You sacked 4 lands, so you have those 4 in your graveyard, and then you got those 4 other lands that made 9 mana. So that means you'll have 13 mana at a minimum. And you can bounce the Teleria West again and sack 4 lands this time, including both your Lotus Fields. You'll transmute the Teleria West for your other pact. You'll pact for Titan. You'll play Titan, and you'll have 4 mana floating from this spot, and you'll get Echoing Deeps and Shifting Woodland. The Echoing Deeps can come in as a copy of Lotus Field from your graveyard. Now you have access to 8 mana. With that 8 mana, you can tap Shifting Woodland. It works. You use 4 of it to make your Shifting Woodland into an Aftermath Analyst, and the other 4 to sack your now Aftermath Analyst, and that's where the loop begins. So you'll return enough lands. Notably, this isn't totally intuitive if you haven't played decks like these before, but when you return Echoing Deeps from your graveyard to the battlefield, you can copy another land in your graveyard that's also being returned. So you can end up getting 3 Lotus Fields at a time.
Okay. That's because it enters as that, so you're kind of selecting.
Yeah, when something like enters as another thing, technically you're choosing what it's entering as while all of these lands are still in your graveyard. Because they go directly from your graveyard to the battlefield. So if it's not on the battlefield yet, that means it's in your graveyard. There's no in-between zone, especially for lands, because lands don't go on the stack. So there's like absolutely no in-between zone for lands ever. So that's going to be able to like generate infinite mana. Notably, this line, you cast... so you'll have lands, Analyst, Scapeshift, and Summoner's Pact in your graveyard, which is Delirium. So there was no like prerequisite for getting Delirium. It assembled it on its own. This by itself allows you to transmute Teleria West as much as you'd like. Now you're out of Pact. You can notably get Ottawara and Beseju, and you can use those and bounce those as much as you'd like. So even if your opponent had Solitude in their hand, you can still use Ottawara and Beseju as much as you'd like. That's kind of like the baseline of the worst thing you could do on that turn.
Mm-hmm.
But
so you
notably,
destroy all
your
opponent's lands, bounce all the stuff.
Yeah, they also, they have to, if they have Solitude or removal for Titan, they have to use it proactively. It's really weird, but as you generate more and more mana, if they haven't killed your Titan yet, what you can do is go, I'm going to Ottawara my Titan. And if you kill it, in response, I'm going to use my Analyst and return all my things and bounce my Ottawara and Ottawara my Titan again. So they have to just fire off like Solituding your Titan at some point earlier in the turn than that.
Gotcha.
And then, in addition to that, if you have a Grazer or a Spelunking, you can bounce those with Ottawara as much as you'd like. And why that matters is because you can Teleria West as much as you'd like. That can help you get lands in your hand, but not in the battlefield. But those permanents can help you put those lands you tutor for into play, like Mirpool, which then means you could threaten to make infinite Titans.
Gotcha.
And if they have no removal, then the Ottawara will just bounce your own Titan, and you'll just play the Titan and get more lands into play. But yeah, if you had like literally no other relevant cards in your hand, and they Solituded your Titan as soon as you played it, basically, then yeah, you're stuck with just infinite Besejus and Ottawaras, which is still, a pretty good deal.
Plenty. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what actually disrupts it if they have 4 lands and an escape shift?
Yeah, I mean, killing the
counterspell, obviously.
Things, counterspells. Consign is tricky against Amulet. There's a bunch of triggers that go on the stack as Amulet, but Consign costs a lot of mana to keep countering them, and it's like sometimes they have 2 Amulets, and maybe think like, for example, if my opponent was leaving up like a single Consign, and I had two Amulets, and I escape shifted with 4 lands. Then instead of getting like the second Lotus Field, I think I could get Urza's Cave, which I guess is missing from this list. Urza's Cave is like a land that taps for colorless. You can pay 3 and sack it to search your library for a land and put it into play. And like you say, okay, I'm going to try to bounce to pick up my Teleria West, which is like normally a thing they might want to consign. And if they consign it, then you can just be like, I'll sack my Urza's Cave for another bounce land and pick up my Teleria West and still have enough mana because I had a double Amulet this turn.
Gotcha. So, boy, how often does it happen when you're playing and your opponent maybe has the proper interaction to stop you and they use it at the wrong time or in the wrong way? Yeah,
that I'm a little unfamiliar with.
Okay.
It's really hard to navigate because, Consign is, the most played card in Modern. And it's a card that I think people will just bring in all 4 copies against this deck for sure. But it's never, like, totally owning you.
Right. Just kind of slow speed bump
Yeah,
type of
and
thing.
like the more you, as you generate more lands or more options, or even if they consign your Primeval Titan, you still have a Primeval Titan for next
Hmm.
turn. Some of the more powerful plays I guess I've seen is like you play Titan, and then your opponent evokes Solitude and replicates Consign to counter the evoke trigger and your Titan trigger, and they at least like develop a 3/2 lifelink while kind of cleanly answering your turn. But that still was 3 cards for just your Titan, even if they're left at the
Totally.
3/2.
Yeah. Um, it used to be the case. Well, a couple thoughts. First, it used to be the case that you could sometimes kill your opponent with their Summoner's Pact if you interacted in the right way. Um, is there any way you could do that? Come
Yeah,
up.
certainly. Like if your opponent's not going to play around anything, you could get them. Surgical could maybe even get them too. Um,
Mm, sure. Yeah.
if your opponent is just passing with a lot of consign mana,
Could you try again?
that's weird. Yeah, if your opponent's just walking into your consign mana, you know, passing with a lot of consign mana, you can just kind of play the game slowly. You have tons of lands. You have Urza Saga, which also Urza Saga is kind of a consign check in itself. If the game's kind of slow and your opponent didn't consign your Saga Chapter 2 or Chapter 3, like do they really have consign? That was a thing that came up in Brood
Right.
Scale too, where it's like you kind of immediately put something face up that is kind of a little too hard for them to not consign if the game's slow at all.
Mm-hmm.
The constructs
So
are just like a little too good.
yeah. So Urza Saga must be like a pretty big plan B for this deck, right? Or at least in the
It's
games where your opponent's
certainly
trying to control you, it seems like
yeah,
a big deal.
it certainly is like a card that not a lot of modern decks are super reactive that way, but sometimes their draws end up being really reactive
Yeah,
post board
I can
against
see it in a
you.
sideboard game totally.
Yeah. Um, and see this sideboard. We have the couple Zeniths, and you really only see Collector Oof and Six as like additional things to get. Six has just become kind of like the main. This deck a long time ago played Tireless Tracker. This is pretty similar. It's just like a little value thing that it doesn't die to Flage, so that's pretty notable. Um,
Okay.
Offers some rebuys.
Yeah. So my last sort of thought with this deck is just even as you're just explaining it, it's it must be a huge reason why this deck is good, or at least a factor is how hard it is to even know what to do against it, especially in a big open tournament. Um, do you take that sort of thing into consideration when you're choosing this deck, or you think it's
Um,
just good on its own merit?
I just think it's good on its own merit from kind of the data, and the data is this mix of like it's been performing really well for a long time in modern, but like it's also
Hmm.
getting more and more popular, and it's hard to play. So like a lot of its data is from like people who are pretty bad at it, I think. Um,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
like
that's fair.
I've played against it in leagues when I prepared for the last Pro Tour where I was like, I beat Amulet, but like I was supposed to lose. Like, just, like
One of those rare games of Magic where you'd win no matter what, like if you were on either side of the table.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, it's certainly a little scary, I guess, going into Vegas that the deck has a big target on its head, I think.
Hmm.
So I could definitely believe that that Vegas could be a tournament that this deck maybe underperforms, but also it's been overperforming at a really high level, I think. It's been around like 54-55% win rate for a really long time, I'd say.
Yeah.
And I also think, attacking this deck is like Blood Moons and Ashioks, which are like just slow, clunky cards. Um,
Sure.
they don't always just work.
3 mana sorceries. Also, not that good in a ton of matchups in modern at the moment, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, there's been some decks on the rise though. There's this blue-green Birthing Ritual deck that seems kind of scary for Amulet. They just play a lot of free counter magic, including Subtlety, and they're a main deck Harbinger of the Seas deck. So
Okay.
um, I was thinking about that deck because I've been watching it, and a lot of people are showing interest in it. And I think there was also a different modern event over the weekends, kind of 10K-ish type event that was won by that deck.
Hmm.
Um, that deck can put Oculus into play, but besides that, it's quite slow. And even a turn 3 Oculus is like a turn 6 kill. Like I'm sure it could play like Oculus into Oculus with Birthing Ritual, but that's still like, this, it's a really disruptive deck, but it also is kind of maxing out at like winning on turn 5, which, is just like a thing that I'm not saying Amulet is favored, but it definitely seems like Amulet's not favored, but it's just like there's a clear kind of flaw for why this deck isn't broken, and I think it's because it's just not that fast.
Yeah, I mean, anytime there's a new untested deck in Modern like this, there's a good chance that it doesn't even stick around for that long,
Yeah.
What's Amulet going to be, 10% of the field?
Yeah, I liked how Nassif put it, where, I mean, it's probably really popular on Magic Online again, but it's just like, if this was a broken Modern deck, who doesn't want it? Like, this deck looks really fun. It's like... It's
got Shardless Agent.
Yeah, it's got Shardless Agent for fair, just 2 mana 1/1s that draw a card, or to try to draw Birthing Ritual more often. And it's got a bunch of interaction. It's a blue-green, like, beatdown deck. It's got Fibblethip, everybody's favorite card. Fibblethip that draws 2 cards when you put it into play with Birthing Ritual.
Yeah.
Because Birthing Ritual notably is not, it's not a mandatory X+1. It's X+1 or less.
Gotcha.
So, this deck, I've watched it on camera, they're turning their Icefang Codal into Fibblethip and drawing 2 cards and things like that all the time. Like,
yeah, it sounds pretty sweet. But also doesn't sound...
Yeah, it's also a deck that, it's specifically looking for a 4-of to really operate at full capacity.
Right.
The Shardless Agents help a little bit, but they're not perfect.
Mm-hmm. I assume it's leaning on Flare Denial pretty heavily, too.
Yeah. It's also, we see the Dismembers and the Sink and the Stupors, but there is a real issue of, like, my opponent resolved their thing, my opponent put a Quantum Riddler into play, and now I'm doomed, things like that. It really needs to fight over the stack and actually have it work, and it's a deck that's not going to play well from behind.
Yeah, red-white energy might be a problem for this deck.
Yeah, it seems like this deck is really polarizing, is my understanding. That, like, the slower mid-range decks and the combo decks are kind of good matchups, but the people playing with, like, 1-drops to the board really fast is kind of nightmarish.
Okay. So you just recommend Amulet. One thought I had while you were talking was, basically, if Amulet is hard to play against, some points are going to its win rate for that. Equally, there's probably points being taken away from its win rate from people who are playing it because it's hard to play. So
yeah, and I thought about this too. I guess it's not that easy to play on Magic Online for like the looping reasons, but I've looked at Goldfish by like the cost of decks, and Amulet is one of the cheaper decks in Modern, which is another reason why I kind of suspect new players actually kind of like to pick it up.
Okay. In real life too, or just online, or both?
Just online, I guess, now. Because now Escape Shift is, like, really expensive.
Right. I'm sure that's due for a reprint soon, though, in a secret layer or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, people ask me a lot about Blink decks, too. So Jeskai Blink was kind of the breakout tournament of the last RC. It won. Jesse Hampton also top-aided with it. That was a deck Costa played at the Pro Tour.
Right.
Kind of solo. I've been seeing more people try and pick up this deck, and I don't think it's like exceptionally broken or anything.
No, it seems like kind of your average mid-range deck. That's like you have to get the sideboard right for the weekend. You have to get your main deck slots right, and then even then you're mostly just trying to go 55% against everyone or something.
Yeah, and you have all these like mini combos, like consign combos or assembling Philia plus something to actually even blink with Philia, because it's actually kind of lacking on that. And it kind of reminds me like this has a lot of the same cards as the Goryo's deck to begin with Riddler, Solitude, and Ephemerate and stuff. It's kind of like it's like a mini Goryo's to me, where like your combos are not mandatory, but like you probably need to pull off some of them to win games of Modern.
Mm-hmm.
but they're like a lot more flexible and don't involve, Goryo's Vengeance very specifically needs a legend in your graveyard, and Atraxa very specifically needs to be in your graveyard. It's a lot more flexible, but the upside is obviously not as high as assembling Goryo's with Atraxa.
Right.
But like ultimately, like you're not gonna win by just like not comboing your cards with this deck. It's just
yeah. So last time we talked about Modern, I think the decks you're most excited about were Amulet. You liked Affinity and Goryo's. Obviously, we know where you stand with Amulet, Affinity, and Goryo's. You think those are good choices for the weekend, or?
Yeah, I think so. Still, Affinity is interesting, I guess, because my understanding is it's not very good against Amulet. After learning a little bit more,
Okay.
The Amulet players are really moving to Force of Vigor for mirrors, anyways. So it's like incidental.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
This has been the case, I guess, for Affinity in many different flavors of Affinity in Modern, where there's some really potent sideboard cards against you, and these combo decks like Amulet. But I also remember this was true when I played Dredge, weirdly, where like you somehow have so much hate that you can just warp into this weird control deck that boards in like 10 cards against Affinity, and kind of has all your angles covered, and you're not even in a hurry to combo them at all. You can kind of just make sure your opponent can't properly pressure you in any way, and play, a turn 6 Primeval Titan, and that's just going to get them, or things like that.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But
okay.
Affinity's still kind of baseline powerful to me. I mean, I think Urza Saga might get my vote for the best card in Modern, and it has Mox Opal too, so.
Looks like Is It Prowess has gotten popular, huh? You think that's just a Magic Online thing, or?
Yeah, I think it's just a Magic Online thing. That was a matchup I actually played as Amulet testing for the Pro Tour against Seth Manfield, and we both thought it was heavily favored for Amulet. That's a matchup where, like Grazer really shines. They're just like not disruptive at all. Game one.
3 reach, baby.
Even though they can win on turn 3 as Prowess, it's not at the same rate that Amulet is threatening to. Amulet doesn't always win on turn 3, but put a Titan into play and have it have haste and attack you and do something else, stuff like that.
Okay. What about decks that people, if they're thinking about playing them, maybe shouldn't? Is there anything that you think is like a popular deck that really will not be well positioned?
I mean, the Prowess is probably up there. Eldrazi Tron.
Okay.
I mean, ultimately, it's like when I think about what am I going to expect in Vegas, I think Amulet hit like 12% at the last RC, so pretty high. They grouped together Blink variants, which was everything except Goryo's that has Ephemerate, basically, and that was more. But individually, Amulet was the most played deck at the last RC. I think people don't change that much in Modern. If it was 12% at the last RC, I'd be really surprised to see it above 15% at Vegas. I still think it could be the most played deck, but also, completely gunning for Amulet is a little ridiculous, when it's not.
Yeah, even 15% on the high end is nothing crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, obviously mostly people are some people are only going to have one Modern deck and whatnot, but maybe if you have the option and you're thinking about Eldrazi, Tron, or Prowess, those don't seem too great at the moment. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a good overview for Modern, I would say. Let's see. I'll let you decide. We're at about an hour. We could talk about the Arena Cube a bit, or we could save it for another episode.
We could talk about it a little bit. I have been playing it a lot, so.
Okay. So what's I'll bring up. Why don't you tell me what your experience has been, and I will bring up the.
Yeah, the 17's land
stuff.
data is very funny. It has some fun lessons. Maybe that's just what we can focus on here because it's
yeah, sure, why not?
To see something so polarizing. But also that's what I've been winning with. I've been winning with the Jeskai color combinations for the most part.
Okay.
Mostly Boros, splashing, counter magic, or power. But I've had some blue-red decks. I've had some blue-white decks. I draft other colors. I'd say green is very noticeably like really bad to me. My base green decks, I'm not a big fan of drafting at all.
So basically, for those listening, 17 lands, kind of changed a lot how people looked at draft. But this is the first time that it's come to Cube because it doesn't track Magic Online; it only tracks Arena. So now that we have a vintage Cube equivalent, you might expect the win rate of the most powerful cards, like Power 9 to be at the top, maybe some really good blue cards, some blue counterspells. When you go to gameplay win rate and sort by that, gameplay win rate being the win rate. Right? Well, you could look at game in hand too. I usually look at gameplay win rate because that is with the card in your deck. So not necessarily
it's a little
that
weird because it's like I see Goblin Bombardment's high on the list, but like you lose a lot of games where you never can afford to cast Goblin Bombardment, right?
Sure. This accounts for it just being in your deck, so I mean, it kind
of. Oh, okay. I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of gameplay win rate is like just it in your deck, and since it's singleton, it's kind of accounting for the structure of your deck a little bit. You could look at in hand also. I mean, there's different ways to interpret it, but this is a fair way to just kind of get a snapshot. And if you look at the data sorted by win rate with 61.6 being the top, basically for a ridiculously long time, you scroll down. Every card is a white and a red card. Yeah. It changes every day. When I was looking at game in hand win rate on like Saturday, it would have told you that Ajani was the best card in the cube. But I think that paints kind of a perfect picture of like, it's not that this card is the best card in the cube. It's that people who end up in open Boros decks win the most by a lot. Exactly.
What that is saying.
Yeah. And what you got to understand about Cube 2 is it's actually pretty complicated, and this is the first time it's on Arena, and Arena is kind of like a free-to-play fun platform for a lot of people, so even the 17 lands users who go out of their way to download a program, they may have not played Cube a lot, and so they might be fumbling around with some like decks that are too crafty, not very well tuned, and it's obviously very easy to just put the white-red aggro decks in your deck and win with those.
Yeah, and I guess we haven't talked about this much because it's been a while for me, but so there's been off and on cube drafts, like money drafting servers for Discord servers that have existed. I know LSV kind of hosts one now, where you might play cube on DraftMatch, you play on Magic Online, you play team draft, and the winning team gets 50 tickets from the losing team, like per person on the team or whatever. So kind of, medium high stakes. $50 a match. I mean, now tickets are worth less than that, so it's like probably $37 a match or something crazy. But
sure.
Anyways, I have dabbled with that before, but not in a long time. But I definitely have totally kind of obsessed over Cube when I did it. And I guess as a reference, so I qualified for Pro Tour OTJ. That was my first Pro Tour after COVID.
Okay.
And when I qualified for that Pro Tour, Outlaws was not on Arena yet, and I kind of wanted to just play against some strong players, so I joined that Cube Draft server in like the April before that Pro Tour, and tried really hard and just really wanted to, kind of, shake off the dust. So I did a bunch of Cube team drafts, and I actually that month, because they were recording it, I had the highest win rate that month in that server, which was kind of cool.
Oh, wow.
Not a huge sample size, but in like
maybe
25
because you're
drafts,
super focused
whatever.
on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And
was the cube pretty similar to how it is now?
Well, yeah, at a baseline, I mean, I guess MH3 wasn't out yet, but still,
it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. The kind of aggressive decks, a lot of fixing. The combo decks, I think, were a little better. Those can be buffed or nerfed, and I was going to point out in this cube, the combo decks, specifically related to big creatures, are missing a lot.
Like Reanimator and Through the Breach and those sort of decks.
So Through the Breach is not in the cube. That's probably the biggest one, in my opinion. They mentioned that they didn't want to code Splice, I guess.
Okay, sure. And then
I think Through the
similar
Breach is
reasons,
better than Sneak Attack. And if you've followed Cube for a long time, people used to say Sneak Attack was really good. But like the reality is you don't need to Sneak Attack multiple times to win games. So like costing a single red and being an instant is just like way better. It's splashable. You can squeak it in on their end step when maybe they're unprepared, things like that. And yeah, there's also no Corpse Dance or Shallow Grave, which care about graveyard order, which is a weird one to me because I guess that's just another I don't want to code it thing, even though like that's be like I don't know. I'm not an expert of coding, but it's like I feel like the graveyard doesn't change order on Arena as is already. So
No, I mean that might be more of a decision of like we're kind of past this in Magic, and we don't really want to have
People to
people thinking about
realize
the
it's a thing that
graveyard in
matters.
this
Yeah,
way. Yeah.
yeah. But I guess all my point is, so there's like none of those. There's no Oath of Druids. There's no Glorious Vengeance. None of these are premier ways to cheat in your creatures. But it basically means that I'm not willing to draft cheat in my creatures unless I start with the premier ways to do so. Because I'm not going to get these weird kind of crappy cards that wheel, you know?
Yeah, a lot of the time the decks would still play those. You know, you'd have some combination of these cards of whatever you could get, because once your deck is already filled with big creatures, you might as well, and it just gives you more ways to do your combo. So when there's less of those in general around, it's just much less reason to draft it.
Yeah, and the two best ones ever, Reanimate and Animate Dead, they're just really, really strong cards. You don't have to play a Reanimator deck to play those cards. If you drafted Outlaws of Thunder Junction, you probably know that about Reanimate. Because on the bonus sheet, you know, 1 mana to reanimate a 4-drop from either player's graveyard and lose 4 life is like a really broken card. You know, like it doesn't have to do anything insane. Like it works in a normal game of Magic.
Yeah. So even in this draft server, you still liked the aggro decks back then?
There was some more like hedge for combo, and there's no initiative. Initiative was in that cube server that month, which was really slanting towards aggressive decks. It really mattered for board presence. Right. But yeah, I guess now in this cube, I won a lot really fast. It kind of made me wish I was a 17 lands user, but I also play on mobile so much that I don't think it would matter. But yeah, I've already, I think, probably have like 10 trophies in this format in the week it's been out.
Okay. I thought I was drafting a lot. You've drafted more than me.
Yeah, I hit top 1200 Mythic from being silver on Tuesday before Halloween. And now I'm diamond again already. I definitely feel like I won a lot more those first 2 days than I did after, so maybe people have kind of caught up now that the data's out.
Yeah, I've had kind of an insane win rate, but I'm really low on the ladder still. So I kind of just attributed it to that.
Yeah. Something else, I guess, is like in Cube, in Best of One, where like you get to see your whole deck as you're drafting it. I will draft these decks, like my sideboard is very often like less than 10 cards, and it's because I'm taking an absurd number of non-basic lands. But it's because like you kind of get to sculpt it as you draft, right? Like because you're like, I already have 20 playables and I'm in pack 3 or something, you know, and it's like I don't really need to draft many more spells for my deck, you know, like I can just secure that my mana base is like perfect every game.
Yeah, so maybe some quick pointers for people. When you're drafting Cube, you really got to think of it as you're kind of drafting a constructed deck. Like your deck really needs to needs to have a theme, it needs to be powerful. It can be a fast aggro deck, that's acceptable. It doesn't have to be like, you know, a merfolk deck or something. But you either have to be a specific combo deck, or you have to be a specific control deck, or you have to be a specific aggro deck. You really can't just be like the worst case scenario is you draft something like green black mid range, you know.
Yeah.
Green black good cards.
It's kind of funny if you break down all the 2-color combos in a cube. I think for a long time specifically, you can make cases for almost all of them looking pretty solid, but green black has always just been like these 2 colors do not mesh in most cubes.
It's not doing anything particularly powerful or disruptive. It's just kind of pointless. Yeah. And so what happens is you're playing a particular archetype, you're looking for specific cards, but also there are cards, I mean it's just all the most powerful cards in Magic, right? So you're almost always going to be able to get enough powerful cards for your deck, even if you have to play some things that are a little bit off theme. And because the decks are so powerful and because there's so many good cards, you end up wanting to pick lands quite highly. Fetch lands are the best. Fetch lands are the best. Really highly. And the cheap cards are important also. That's a good point. It's easy to be tempted by a really splashy card, Jason Mind Sculptor, Grave Titan, something like that. But mostly the best cards are the power, Swords to Plowshares, Sheep Interaction. Apparently in this cube it's cheap creatures.
I think a lot of my success is really prioritizing cards that can trade up on mana, which are like 1 mana interactive spells or splashing counter spells in these aggro decks. Which actually means, I like cards like Mana Leak and Memory Lapse more than counter spells, sometimes more than Mana Drain. Probably not in pack 1, but like if in pack 2 I'm not base blue, I'm going to take Memory Lapse over Mana Drain. Stuff like that. Because they're splashable. Also, my curves are so low, honestly, that the mana from Mana Drain is like not even a thing that matters most games. We see Reprieve is absurdly high, things like that. Also, this is a realization I had, but it's like a lot of the really threatening cards in Cube, are ports from Constructed, or maybe specific like Broadside Bombardiers is a good example. Shock, which is not a card in Cube, but there are many red cards that are similar to Shock. I think Shock is better in Cube than it is in like almost any other format ever. Is kind of the point I'm getting at. Like just a 1 mana deal 2 instant. There's a ton of targets.
I think there's Burst Lightning, for example.
There's Burst Lightning, Unholy Heat, Galvanic Blast, Galvanic Discharge. Those are all in the Cube. And I think they're actually really high picks. I think you can go overboard on them, and that's not where you want to be, but making sure you have your first like 2 of them in a red-based deck is pretty important.
Yeah. Boy, this date is crazy, man. The first piece of power that shows up is like the 30th card, and it's Mox Ruby, and then Black Lotus. I think we need to give this some time and watch how it develops. There's a good chance this changes a bit, and I'm still, if I open a Mox or a Black Lotus, I'm still taking.
Those are still the correct
any
picks,
of this
right?
other.
There's some weird lessons where it's like this is a good extreme data point. I feel like of what you can see from 17 lands, and it makes me wonder what other formats maybe we don't think of. These card rankings as something even close to this, but maybe they were.
Right.
Where you're like, oh, it says this green card is really high win rate, and it's like, no, it's just because green is really, like, open green decks are really good, Yeah,
it's a snapshot of data. One thing when you're looking at large samples of data, I mean, this is why when in real life, when people do complex studies and peer-reviewed studies and whatnot, they always have lots of controls that are always really complicated, and it's an important part. And there's really no controls, so to speak, here. So there's no accounting for anything. I mean, there's probably some minor stuff on the data side, but mostly this is just like what is winning right now. No other information. And so you have to kind of think about what's going on in the context of all of it, because even though these cards are good, you shouldn't be picking Glimmer Lens, whatever this is, over
and
Black
also
Lotus,
the stat of like average last seen in pack or whatever matters a lot here, right? Like, because it's indicating that like Hired Claw, I see is high up there, and is that average last seen really high up there, right? Or what? It's
Hired Claw at 7.77.
So almost.
So this is sorted by win rate, so it's 61% win rate. Yeah, but people are picking it. Yeah, almost at a wheel, exactly.
Which is my point of like, it has this high win rate because it's like I think it's supposed to wheel or whatever, or roughly be that late. I think that's kind of an accurate place to pick that type of card. But people are putting it in their deck who like are looking for it late in and getting it, which means they're in an open seat in their draft, is kind of what this is showing.
Yeah, so it's definitely not like when you should pick cards, but it's just showing what this is showing more than anything is just how well the white-red aggro decks in particular are doing. And I've had some good white aggro decks. I've had some like white-based decks I've been pairing with green. Like I had a draft where I got Wasteland and Strip Mine, and I had Knight of the Reliquary, and I had like a white-green, I had a lot of the white disruptive and aggro cards, but then I had some green things.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of decks, even within this Jeskai color combination, that I think are aware of the aggro decks and playing, I'm playing lots of cheap cards in all my decks. I've had some blue-black decks recently. I just had a draft recently. I went 5-3 to my draft today, but it was very funny. I played against Parallax Wave like 4 games in a row, and the first 3 that I played against it, I just like kept up on early trades and interactions so much that my opponent's Parallax Wave was just like purely defensive, and they were just playing like a suspend to lose the game type card. And like it made it look really embarrassing.
Yeah, Parallax Wave is a really strong card in general.
And I guess my example too of like showing that the deck is open. I remember when I checked on Saturday that the second best land in the cube behind Caracas was Sacred Foundry, not Plateau, which is like kind of a great example of what I'm talking about.
Oh,
like, people are taking Plateau highly to like fix maybe in a deck that's not Boros, but they're not doing that as often with Sacred Foundry or things like that.
Yeah, Sacred Foundry's still above it.
Yeah, and like obviously the Sacred Foundry is not better than Plateau. Like so, it's more indicating that
it is only very slightly above it. Oh, these are all very close together.
Yeah, of course. But
this also, by the way, the difference in the win rate, how it's only a point percentage between a large chunk of cards, also kind of shows that a lot of them are pretty replaceable, which is even more so showing the strength of the white-red deck, because it doesn't really matter which of these cards you have, in a sense.
That's a huge issue for some of the other archetypes, is like
they need very specific cards in this.
Yeah, and like the white and red cards. Like that's the other thing, is I play these white-red decks sometimes that are more like, I don't play the Savannah Alliance or Hired Claw type cards. I play a ton of cheap interaction and like Planeswalkers, and it's just like it's almost just like a white-red control deck.
Really well,
yeah. Elspeth is it's kind of funny. I think I had mentioned this before, but they kind of made really shitty Planeswalkers for so many years. And then Dragonstorm Tarkir came out, and Ugin and Elspeth are just totally broken.
Insane. Like, multi-format all-star kind of Planeswalkers, I like Planeswalkers when they're fun. I mean, they maybe pushed it when they came out of the gates. Maybe they thought they were too good for several years, and so they really dialed them back. And it was kind of lame. It's cool to see good Planeswalkers coming back. So I mean, obviously, we're not going to be able to Powered Cube, Vintage Cube is really complex. We're not going to be able to cover it.
I mean, I'd be excited if they could make some like Arena Open with it or something. That would be sweet.
Oh, I bet they will. They will. Yeah, it's going to be fun. Okay, well, that's a good touch on it.
Through the Breach is my number one card I wish was in the cube that's not, I think.
They could just like reprint it, essentially. They could like make an Arena Alchemy card without Splice or something.
Yeah, they don't. So there's currently no Alchemy cards in this cube.
Oh, right. That's kind of nice, isn't it?
Yeah. The weirdest card in the cube, which everybody loves, it's a great decision, is Booster Tutor.
Yeah, that's a sweet one.
Which is a card you'll encounter in Paper Cubes sometimes, so that's kind of cool. It uses... So it's kind of funny because it says reveal the cards, and it just doesn't do that for your opponent, having played against Booster Tutor a lot. It does reveal the card they pick.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if that's a bug. Maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it kind of just uses the spellbook mechanic where it takes 15 random cards from the cube and shows them to you. So that's pretty neat. I was talking to my friends about this. I think the only reason Booster Tutor even has you reveal the pack is so that you can track it later in the draft. Because like it's supposed to be removed from, like when it was designed, it shouldn't have been in your deck after that game. So it's just to kind of help other players at the table be like, no, like that was your booster.
Yeah, totally. It's funny. It does have a losing win rate, but I do think it's a pretty strong card.
Yeah, I think it might not be that strong of a card, but it's also like its win rate's got to be lower because it's probably getting drafted way too high. Also,
yeah, 2.8.
Yeah, it's not that good.
Also, yeah, it is nice in like, so I've drafted these multicolor because sometimes I end up picking a lot of land and I like don't want to commit to any of the combo stuff, and I end up in this like multicolor interaction deck that's like pretty decent. And it's kind of nice there because you'll end up with triumphs and off-color triumphs and stuff. So you end up being able to choose from a wider variety of the cards than you otherwise would if you were just two colors.
Yeah, is that flash right above it at really low win rate?
Yeah,
that's funny.
I hate it when I lose to this card.
At the time when I was ranking cube cards, I would have called flash a top 25 cube card.
It might still be, like
it's. But like all the cards that Flash are good with are also good with Through the Breach. That's like a great example of.
Yeah, it might be part of it.
Like World Spine Worm and Woodfall Primus are the two best things to Flash, and they're also two of the best things to Through the Breach.
Right. Yeah, so missing through the breach might make it worse. I mean, I've still died to this card several times already, but um
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like a semi-reanimator thing too. Like not with World Spineworm as much or Woodfall Primus, but like you can like flash in Atraxa or Archon just to get the ETB, which is pretty powerful, and also it puts
Right.
the card into your graveyard,
But it
which is
doesn't
pretty
work
nice.
with something like Grizzlebrand, so people know,
No,
because
yeah,
you have to
yeah. I guess for
resolve
reference too,
the
like I would take Atraxa and Archon pretty highly in cubes because they're so premium. Like I'd take them pack one, pick one in some packs. But, it's just a little worse when that's what I mean by like there not being corpse dance or things like that, where it's just like, you know, you could probably reliably be I have a lot of decks that I guess are blue black or black red mid rangey decks that kind of splash the reanimator thing.
hmm
And that lack of like extra things just means that sometimes that never comes together.
something's up with this data. Psychic Frog's kind of insane. It's at and it's at a losing win rate,
Yeah,
so
no,
I don't know
Psychic
about
Frog's
that.
a reason to draft those two colors. And
Hmm. Just an example of something I'm seeing. I mean, even Hullbreacher too. I think of this as kind of one of a pretty premier combo piece.
yeah, Hull Breacher's a funny one, I guess, because it's I used to think it was kind of really top cube card, but
hmm
as I felt like more and more aggro decks came up, and my point about shock, this is a 3-drop that can die to a random unholy heat or something. It's actually pretty bad against the Boros decks, so that one makes a little bit more sense to me.
Okay, that makes sense.
There's
It'll
no
be interesting to
there's no
see if we
universes
see.
beyond in this cube either. And not that it exactly matters for Hull Breacher, but it means there's no Orcish Bowmaster, which kind of goes in the same deck if you're trying to draft that type of deck.
That's true. Yeah.
There's no One
Um.
Ring also, which Hull Breacher is really good against. So
Yeah. Well, if people, I mean, people could start drafting their decks differently, and it might change a lot. Like if
yeah, I mean
with
the
aggro in
weirdest part
mind.
though is that the best color against the Boros deck is just red.
That's
So
true.
like I said, I've
Yeah.
had a handful of these blue red decks. I'm playing Pyrokinesis, things like that.
They might need to change the structure of the cube a little bit to add some answers. If
Yeah,
the
and then
aggro decks are so dominant.
this is a same lesson I've learned when I really focused on cube before. But all the anti-aggro, like red cards or whatever color they are,
Mm-hmm.
also just make green worse. Like every time. Like they
Like the
all
one,
also
like
hit
Fiery
mana dorks.
Confluence.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the mana dorks just never really win in the cube, and my best green decks are just kind of stompy aggro decks where you're just trying to use the mana dorks to power out these white or red cards for the most part ahead of schedule, but you have to have extra good mana.
Right. Yeah, I've got Fiery Confluence highlighted. That's the 2-row red sorcery. Choose 3 modes. This can be a sweeper. You can choose 1 damage, 2 damage, or 3 damage, and you can also blow up lots of artifacts. So I've been pretty happy with this deck.
It's also
Like I said,
a burn spell for 6. It's really
totally.
versatile.
Yeah. There is that part. But I've been drafting these like removal heavy decks, and they often have red.
I
Things
cast
like
this as a
Golden
sweeper when
Scrams.
my opponent had Screaming Nemesis, and it didn't matter, but I learned they can ping 3 different things. If they
Oh,
wanted.
sure.
You get 3 Screaming
Does it
Nemesis.
get 3 different
triggers for one.
instances?
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Look how high Glorybringer is. It does not strike me as a good cube card.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess also if you're drafting cube, I just really like the 3, 4, 5 plus mana cards. I really view as replacement level, and
Totally.
there are some exceptions, but even the exceptions, I would really be careful of. I think people will be like, "Oh, Parallax Wave," and is like one of the best ever, and like,
Mm-hmm.
I gave an example of when I was kind of building my deck to be a little bit more anti-aggro. The Parallax Wave is, Parallax Wave is mostly like your opponent can't block for 2 turns or whatever. Is like what that card is good at doing, and
Yeah. Or a couple combo things with
so
it, but
when you're ahead on board, it's just kind of like double my creatures are unblockable, and it works. But yeah, it's like I take Parallax Wave really highly too, but if there's like a premium, like Swords to Plowshare type card or things like that, I'm gonna take those over the
totally.
the
Or like a
Minskin
Ragavan or
Boost,
some
even Oko,
really
things
strong
like
cheap
that.
creature.
Like I really value the cheap interaction, the mana fixing. I love fetch lands and fetchable lands. Though comically, Verdant Catacombs, just kind of, I've started putting the blind, like, just started ignoring that one. It's not
Yeah.
clicking
So
the land that I want.
the thing with fetch lands being really important is there's tri lands and dual lands, and you can for instance have a Sacred Foundry that could get 5 different colors of mana.
An
Or
Arid
not
Mesa,
Sacred
but
Foundry, I'm
yeah.
sorry, an Arid Mesa that get 5 colors of mana. Yeah, so you mostly want to prioritize fetch lands and then the old dual lands. Although shock lands aren't much different, to be honest, than like Tropical Island, and Steam Vent's not much worse. And then I would say the tri lands after that, and then maybe surveil lands. But,
Yeah, well, also, like, I really value, like, the first surveil land, kind of similar to constructed, as you said, you're kind of copying constructed decks, and when you draft 2 or 3 fetch lands, having a surveil land that, like, overlaps with all of them is really powerful.
yeah, but you can definitely get too many tap lands. I've had this happen to me a couple
Yeah,
times
definitely.
because there's the tri lands and the surveil lands.
I
You
kind
can
of
end up
wish
with
the tri-lands
plus
weren't
some other
in
utility
cubes
lands.
anymore.
Really?
Yeah, since the surveil lands, it's for that tap land reason, and also,
Yeah.
I don't know, to some extent, I kind of like that cube mirrors constructed a little bit, and those tri-lands don't really see play in constructed ever since the surveil lands.
That's true. It does make for some cool like 4 and 5 color decks, but I guess
Yeah,
it's kind of
what's
like a
more
soupy
boring to me
feel
is I like
anyways.
take a tri-land a lot and then take it because it's my 2 colors, just like a fetchable
Oh yeah.
of my 2 colors, and I never use the third color or things like that. And if my deck's perfect, I'm not doing that, but sometimes you miss on the fetchable dual land or whatever, and then you say, "Yep, I'll take the Jetmir's Garden in my Boros deck."
Right. And that's not terribly interesting. Yeah, I mean maybe they could have. There are some lands I wish were kind of in here. Like I think Primeval Titan is surprisingly bad. He needs some help. He could use a couple more utility lands to get and things like that. So
The lands deck is not very good, but it's a problem
right,
with
they
green.
basically it is.
I think
Um,
the ideal kind of cube is not color balance, or there's not an equal number of cards in each color, and I think green just should get the short end of the stick, and that's okay.
Probably, and maybe one day they'll print more green cards. Because the thing is, it's not like they've unbalanced the cube. They've put all the best green cards they could find. I'm sure. It's just
Yeah, yeah, and then there's some weird Raphelos is kind of cruel in my opinion. Raphelos is
yeah,
this
it's like a
nostalgic
trap.
cube card, but it's totally a trap.
Yeah, man, that card used to be really good.
They put Yavimaya in to try to help it, I guess.
Yeah, 49.
I got by
Yeah,
that.
they could probably take Raphelos out.
I was playing with Olivia and we wastelanded our opponent's only forest when they had Raphelos in play, and then chose to kill a mana dork that wasn't Raphelos, and they untapped and played
No.
Yavimaya and tapped the Raphelos for 3, and it was very funny.
I have trophied with 2 different guys Cradles deck already, but I'm in a lower rank, so I don't.
Well, fun fact about Gaia's Cradle is I also think it's kind of good in white aggro in certain decks.
Yeah. Okay. One of my decks was green white. It was
Especially
the
if you have
deck.
Umezawa's Jite or other equipment that you can use that extra mana on.
Yeah.
It tapping for colorless for each creature you control can be pretty good.
Totally. I mean, Cradle's still
Yeah.
just one of the best green cards for sure. Okay, well, that'll do it for this episode, folks. A little bit of a spatter,
Yeah.
shotgun approach to an episode, but we're kind of in a little bit of a dead period, honestly. We're waiting on Avatar, we're waiting on Standard to be changed.
We should have Avatar top 10 next week, though, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be totally fun. And then we also get the ban announcement, presumably
Yeah,
for
we'll
Standard,
talk
so
about that too. Yeah,
that'll change things.
that'll
too.
be.
Yeah.
I'm super excited for that because I've said it plenty of times. I don't envy their position, and
No,
I think
not at all.
what my prediction is that after Worlds, we're all going to be complaining about Quantum Riddler being the best card in Standard. That's my current prediction.
You don't think they'll ban it?
No, I kind of don't think they'll ban it, and it just is really strong.
It's going to be a problem. Yeah. Well, I'm pretty good at complaining, so that's fine. I'll be ready for that. Hopefully they learned something. Hopefully they use this couple years of trying to get Standard on track. I hope the worst case scenario is they give up on Standard and they're just like, we're not really going to focus on this format anymore. I hope they don't do that. I hope they just learn from their mistakes, or not even mistakes necessarily. Maybe they don't have to think of it that way. They can learn some changes they need to do to a card design or that sort of things. Thanks everyone for watching. That'll do it. Remember, you can find us over on patreon.com/stockuppodcast. We have one tier at the moment still. It's $1 a month, and you get access to all of our content. You can also find us on YouTube. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Okay. We did it.
Yeah, I have an idea, a sign-off idea, if you don't, I guess. That just
Sure.
came up. Okay.
Go for it.
Because I've been thinking about this.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do for the bans? Not from the perspective of making people happy, I guess, but what cards, and you can unban too, like, do you think would make for the most interesting change in Standard?
And I could choose for my own selfish reasons,
Yeah, sure.
is what you're saying?
Yeah, bans
Okay.
and unbans. Like, what cards would you prefer be on the ban list after next Monday?
Yeah, I think I'd let the mice free. Maybe Heartfire Hero needs to stay, but honestly, I feel like the mice could be free. Maybe Monstrous Rage stays. I think that's fair. I think Monstrous Rage was like gave red at angle that was a little too strong, so that can stay. But I think the mice could be free. I think what else could be free? Most of the other stuff that's banned is not that fun.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like the double hit.
I'm
on
trying to
is a little
remember.
Weird.
Oh yeah,
Hopeless Nightmare and This Town.
they could. I feel like this town should come off probably.
Yeah.
I think the one I would leave is Hopeless Nightmare. That's like the most abusable and good on rate card.
What about Beanstalk?
Beanstalk stays banned. Yeah, I don't like that card. I think it just narrows the other end of the format too much.
Having tested for a Pro Tour where, I guess 2 Pro Tours, but specifically Aether Drift, where it was a little bit stronger, it definitely felt like I can't go over the top. There definitely is a bind of like, you have mice and Beanstalk, and like
that
both
was
of those
tough.
being legal was pretty frustrating because it really felt like you had to pick a side and nothing else mattered.
Right, and I think if as long as like the combo, so I'd also ban Cauldron. As long as the combo and Beanstalk angle is under control, I think the aggro decks will have counterplay to them.
And you'd keep Steel Cutter banned?
But yeah, keep Steel Cutter banned for sure. Yeah. So
that
ban
one seems
Cauldron,
like most obvious to me. It seems like it's a big outlier in power level.
Power, yeah. I'd ban Profs.
Okay.
Just
so
with
you'd
the logic
mostly
that
add cards, maybe unban
Mostly.
the Heartfire Hero?
Yeah, I think I'd unban Heartfire Hero and this town. I'd probably also just go ahead and ban Riddler. And either Kaito or Curiosity, probably.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Kaito or Curiosity get banned on Monday, actually.
No, I wouldn't either.
You're mentioning. A card I want to see banned that maybe has more precedent because of the Spotlight series is Leyline.
Leyline. Oh, okay.
Red one.
I mean, it's banned in
I
best.
don't care what the stats are. Banning that card
Right.
to me is like the same as banning Tybalt's Trickery when that card came out. You know, it's
banned in best of 1 standard, isn't it? Right now.
And
yeah,
I think
don't see why
especially
we wouldn't just.
I would
ban
kind
it
of
in best
love to see
3.
that banned and the mouse get unbanned, but leave Rage banned. That's fine.
Yeah. I think that fits pretty well. I could maybe come up with 1 or 2 other things that could be banned that might make the format more interesting. Because one of the things that's going on with standard is it's too big. What I would really do is rotate faster. I would get rid of this 3-year nonsense. But if I had to fix it with bans, I'd be looking to shave a lot of stuff off the top. I might even go so far as to ban something from those green decks as well, like maybe the 4-2
I kind of
or
prefer
something
BB
like that.
gets banned and Cauldron stays legal, to be honest. I think Cauldron having the ability to do some cool things is fine, and I don't think anything as crazy as VV is going to exist.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
You're just going to like try to.
I just kind of like VV
or whatever.
He's cute. Yeah. I just kind of like VV for my own selfish reasons.
Yeah, for my own selfish reasons, I'd prefer if I could play like a blue-red prowess deck at the next Pro Tour with VV. That would be sweet. But
yeah, that sounds kind of fun. And I have to maybe we got to plan Into the Flood Bomb. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, that one.
We could probably do without that one, honestly.
Like, it's weird. It's kind of a case of like that card's good because of like stock up Winter Night Stories and Riddler, right? Like, like you just have these extremely powerful card advantage cards, and Storm Chaser's talent a little bit too. Like the blue card advantage is so good right now that
Yeah, but I like it.
Bouncing things is just.
I know. Yeah, mostly in like proactive decks that you could otherwise stop with like hate pieces. I mean, Into the Flood Mod is just a huge slap in the face because it's like a main deck sideboard anti-hate card. I like stock up and all that stuff. I don't want them to ban like cool card drawing cards. It's actually
Riddler's
been a while
different.
since we
Riddler's
had
a little
card
like boring. Like the.
It is, yeah. Riddler, I joke that it's like the blue companion in Standard because you pay your mana to put it into the zone, and then as soon as you run out of cards in hand, it just refills completely. It's kind of nonsense.
Cool, yeah. Yeah, I think Leyline is like, especially when watching that Spotlight series that it won was really funny because I think, I'm not saying this as accusatory or sketchy at all. It's just, the person who won the tournament getting lucky, but like that guy put Leyline into play like 6 times across 5 games in his top 4. Like he just double Leylining and just completely.
It does feel pretty bad.
The top
when you
8 of the
use
tournament.
that card.
Yeah,
it feels pretty bad. We don't need that nonsense. I agree. I bet if I look, like I'm not looking, I haven't thought about Standard in like a month because it's like a dead format. I don't know why they decided to do that, but I could probably come up with a couple other cards that they could probably ban. Like I think the green decks are actually have something really strong going on that might be scary once you ban the other stuff.
Oh, I agree. I mean, there's been the Simic deck that has been kind of keeping up at some of these events with Cauldron a little bit, if you've seen it.
Well, yeah, with
Jackal,
Boroid and stuff.
Yeah,
Jackal. Oh, Jackal's been seeing play. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, I knew that. I thought that card would fit in that deck.
Yeah, they play a bunch of 1-drops. They play Llanowar Elves and Gene Pollinator, and they try to go like turn 1 Mana Dork, turn 2 Jackal plus 1-drop, copy it, go really wide with Ouroboros really fast, and they also just play Quantum Riddlers because you're this green Mana Dork deck that empties their hand super quickly, and now you have this giant flyer that draws your hands back.
To be fair, I bet if you hit Riddler, that deck would get a lot worse.
Oh, I agree. Well, it's weird. So they only play like 1 or 2,
acceptable.
But sometimes they play 4 in the 75. But
I would think it'd be a really good sideboard card for them too.
Yeah, their deck is pretty funny. Like I imagine the mirrors. I don't know. Maybe blocking exists in the mirrors, but probably not because of Ouroboros. Because their deck is just like lands, innkeepers, talent, and creatures, which is like kind of boring. Right. Their interaction is built into their creatures because they play Floodpits Drowner and Azure Beastbinder. Also, fun fact, I read Jackal. I haven't seen anybody do this, and I saw somebody playing on YouTube, and they didn't do this because I think they didn't know they could. If you have like a 2/2 Jackal, you can like flash in 2 Floodpits Drowners and copy both of them. The way it's worded. Okay. Like you can play a sorcery speed 2-drop and flash in Floodpits Drowner in response to the trigger and copy both of them.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, that's pretty good. It's
pretty fun.
Yeah, it's a strong card.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we will see. I'm ready. I really hope it's not super boring, but because Standard needs some adrenaline shot into its arm for sure.
Okay, we'll do one last thing. Just guess. We'll see who's closer. How many cards do you think will get banned? Because I don't think they'll unban anything. I think that's out of the question, to be honest.
You think so?
Yeah, I think just like they can't just unban Heartfire Hero and then have Heartfire Hero win Worlds. Like it doesn't look good.
You're right. Okay. I think they banned 7 last time.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna say this might be a little crazy. I'm gonna say 5.
Okay, I'll say 4 then.
Okay, I think they're gonna do the same approach. Where they're gonna try to shave off the top and try to get to a reasonably powerful format because they don't want just like Pioneer that's Standard, I'm
gonna go. Yeah, I think if I had to specifically nail it down, it's like Profs VV. I'll say not Cauldron. You can have Cauldron for your vote of 5, and then probably Kaido or Curiosity. Never both. That would be weird to ban both.
Yeah, see, the reason I picked 5 is I think one if not both of the top decks, they'll probably ban multiple cards because they don't want to have to ban again.
Yeah, it's also weird is, the Leyline red deck that won is not the popular flavor of red. And, red has been kind of popular, and it would be funny if they just shot another card out of the red decks that wasn't Leyline,
Yeah, I mean, red does keep winning these like events where VB's
banning burst lightning.
dominant. They if they're gonna ban a red card, it'd probably be Screaming Nemesis, right?
Yeah, it would be Screaming. That makes sense.
Because that card's not very fun.
But yeah,
It's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, I don't think they'll ban it though. But we'll see. They might.